Imagine standing on like the steeply pitched roof of this 40-foot shrine.
Okay.
The ancient wood beneath your boots is just, it's actively groaning. There are these plumes of thick, acrid smoke billowing out from the eaves, and flames are just starting to lick at the edges of the shingles.
And I mean, that environmental hazard is really only half the problem, right?
Exactly.
Because down below, you've got an entire army of bloodthirsty orcs and ogres, and they are just howling for your head, waiting for the structure to collapse so they can pick through the rubble.
Yeah, so the heat is unbearable, the smoke is blinding, your adventuring party is battered, you're running out of magic, and, well, completely out of time.
Yeah.
And just when you think the pressure in the room absolutely cannot get any higher, the dungeon master reaches under the table, smiles, and brings out a literal Jenga tower.
Oh, man. The Jenga tower.
Right. So welcome to our deep dive for today. We are on a mission to unpack a really pivotal, honestly heartbreaking, and incredibly cinematic turning point in this sprawling campaign. We are talking about the events of Session 8.
It is such a massive session.
It really is. And if you've been following along, you already know the stakes. But even if you are just catching up, we are looking at a masterclass in how tabletop role-playing games take abstract mechanics and turn them into pure, unadulterated narrative tension.
For sure. And we're specifically examining the compounding nature of consequences today.
Oh, totally.
Because, you know, in a standard video game, you make a mistake, you just reload a save file. But in a collaborative storytelling medium like this, one impulsive decision spirals into a localized catastrophe.
Right, which then escalates into like a cosmic level crisis.
Exactly. There is no reset button.
Yeah.
Every single choice actively rewrites the world.
So let's set the stage by looking at the exact spark that started this fire back in Session 7.
The literal spark.
Yeah, literal spark.
They...
The party was in a desperate retreat inside the Shrine of Savras. And as a reminder, Savras is the deity of truth, divination, and fate.
Right.
So their warlock, Redder, was trying to cover their escape. And Redder is carrying a massive amount of internal baggage.
That's putting it mildly.
Seriously, he is possessed by a burning spirit of vengeance known as Zarathos, while simultaneously dealing with a secondary internal demon monk personality named Sock.
Which is a completely crowded headspace.
Very crowded. So in a panic, he fires off 2 Eldritch Blasts, basically these magical bolts of energy to slow down the advancing monsters. But he miscalculates.
He rolls poorly.
Yeah, those magical blasts hit the shrine's sacred truth scrolls. Within seconds, the ancient parchment ignites and the entire building catches fire.
Which completely shatters their tactical reality. I mean, they're suddenly trapped between an advancing horde of monsters outside and a raging inferno inside.
Yeah, talk about out of the frying pan.
Readily.
Yeah.
The situation goes from a difficult combat encounter to a disastrous survival scenario in a single turn. They're forced to burn through their remaining resources not to defeat the enemy, but just to survive the environment they accidentally created.
Right. And I really want to focus on their desperate and highly unconventional escape plan, because this is where the mechanics start to, like, buckle under the weight of the narrative.
Oh, definitely.
They need to get to the roof to avoid being burned alive. So Wiffer, who is an Aasimar fighter, meaning he has celestial angelic blood running through his veins, he activates his magical wings.
Because he needs to fly the party up to the 40-foot peak of the shrine's roof.
Right. The physics still apply.
Yeah.
Right. He cannot carry the entire party at once.
No, he'd be over-encumbered instantly.
Exactly. So they get creative. Boris the cleric, Reger the warlock, Bajak the rogue, and the shrine's peaceful caretaker, Sister Langolin, they all decide to just jump into Vitrovia's magical bag.
Which is, it's a variation of the classic bag of holding maneuver.
Right, right.
These magical bags contain small pocket dimensions, essentially bypassing the physical weight of whatever is inside them. So functionally, Wiffer is just carrying a satchel.
A satchel full of his friends.
Exactly. But the cost of this airlift is severe. While he is slowly flying up to the roof, acting as an unarmored transport, he is entirely exposed.
Oh man, yeah. He takes a volley of magical missiles and an archer's arrow on the ascent.
Just brutal.
By the time his boots actually hit the shingles, his health pool is cut in half. He absorbs a massive physical toll just to get his friends out of the fire.
He really does.
And I understand the tactical sacrifice there, but I really want to push back on what happens next. Because when they land on the roof, the magical bag suddenly begins showing extreme signs of distress.
Yeah, it starts freaking out.
It wasn't meant to hold this specific group of people, and it forcibly spits everyone out onto the roof, except for the peaceful Sister Langolin.
Right.
The seams of this magical item are literally bursting. But wait, let's unpack this. Why is the bag suddenly rejecting them now? They have used magical storage before. If a pocket dimension is just an empty void of space, why does it care who or what is inside it?
Well, it's a fantastic question, and the answer lies in the specific flavor of the magic being used here.
Okay, what do you mean?
Think of this not as a storage issue, but as the arcane equivalent of, like, an organ transplant rejection.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Vitrovia's pocket dimension isn't just a generic empty void. It is constructed out of pure moon energy.
Right, because she's a druid.
Exactly. By its very nature, it is a sanctuary meant for calming, preservation, and restoration. Now, analyze what they just shoved inside it.
Yeah.
You have Reendar, who is literally housing a chaotic demon and a burning spirit of vengeance.
So you're saying the bag is basically allergic to him?
Essentially, yes. Forcing that kind of volatile, infernal, aggressive energy into a delicate sanctuary of peace causes an intense, immediate, arcane friction.
That makes so much sense.
Right. It is a brilliant tactical move on paper to bypass carrying capacity, but it completely ignores the metaphysical reality of the world. The players treated a magical artifact like a mundane backpack, and the universe responded by violently expelling the incompatible entities.
So the bag just vomits them out, and now the entire party is sprawled across this pitched burning roof.
A terrible place to be.
And you would think the immediate priority here is survival, right? The building is structurally failing, the flames are rising. Let it burn, figure out how to climb down the back wall, and run into the forest.
That would be the logical thing to do.
But before Boris the cleric can even fully stand up, Sister Langolin grabs him by the armor, and she delivers this incredibly dire warning.
Right.
She tells him that the altar still sitting down in the flames is possibly the last functioning altar to Savras in all of Faerun.
The very last one.
Yeah. And if it burns, she claims the very concept of truth might die with it, allowing lies and misinformation to run rampant across the realm.
Which is wild, because the scope of the problem completely shifts there. What was just an environmental hazard, a burning wooden building, instantly becomes an existential threat to the fabric of reality itself.
I have to challenge this logic, though. I mean, put yourself in Boris's shoes for a second.
Okay.
There is a literal army of bloodthirsty orcs and ogres encircling the building. You are standing on a roof that is actively catching fire.
Mm-hmm.
Are you really going to pivot and perform fire rescue on a piece of stone?
I mean...
Is an abstract philosophical concept like truth actually worth dying for when there are spears flying past your head? It feels like the characters are prioritizing a museum artifact over their own pulses.
I completely see the tactical absurdity from a real-world perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If a house is burning, you don't run back in for a philosophy textbook, but consider the alternative reality of how divinity operates in the Forgotten Realms.
Okay, lay it on me.
In this setting, gods are not distant, abstract concepts that exist regardless of human belief. They require infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
Yet gods draw their tether to the mortal plane and their active power to influence the world directly from their altars, their shrines, and their followers.
Oh, like a Wi-Fi router for divine magic. If you smash the router, the signal drops dead.
Precisely. And Savras' signal is already critically weak. His temples have been ransacked across the continent. Meanwhile, the cultists of Talos, the chaotic god of destruction, are actively sweeping across the Sword Coast, trying to wipe civilization clean.
So it's a turf war.
Exactly. If Boris allows Savras' final tether to the mortal plane to turn to ash, it isn't just a tragic loss of property, it is a definitive cosmic victory for the forces of chaos. The rules of reality would fundamentally alter.
Wow.
Misinformation wouldn't just be a social problem, it would become a supernatural mandate. So Boris realizes in that split second that preserving the metaphysical balance of the world is actually more vital than his immediate physical safety.
Which prompts an incredible pivot. Boris completely shifts his focus away from the army of orcs.
Right, he ignores them.
Yeah, instead of raining down clerical fire on the enemies outside, he casts a spell called Wall of Wind, and he aims it down into the burning building. He uses a localized hurricane to literally part the flames inside the shrine, acting as a magical firefighter. This creates a temporary, safe corridor of air, giving Bajak the rogue the chance to safely drop down and check the altar for an escape route.
And this choice forces a severe division of resources.
Oh, absolutely.
While Boris is dedicating his concentration and his magic to managing the structural integrity of reality itself, he is leaving the rest of the party out to dry. They now have to manage the physical integrity of their own bodies against a horde, essentially down a player.
Yeah, and Bajak doesn't even find a secret tunnel under the altar. But he does find a stash of gold and a note revealing that the massive bell in the shrine's belfry is made of solid gold.
Classic rogue priorities.
Right. It's a great little discovery for a rogue, but it does nothing to stop the army outside. Which brings us to the combat on the roof and the stark contrast between narrative highs and the cold, brutal mathematics of tabletop combat.
Oh man, here we go.
Let's start with the high, because visually it is stunning. Vitrovia uses her druidic magic, her wild shape, to transform her body into a massive dire wolf.
Awesome.
And Ritter, tapping into his spirit of vengeance, goes full Ghost Rider. And they combine their abilities into a breathtaking tag team mechanic that they dub Moonfire.
From a game design perspective, this is a beautiful synthesis of player abilities. They literally negotiate with the Dungeon Master to act as a single entity on the initiative order.
Which is so cool.
Right. They move together, they synchronize their actions, and any hit they land causes a magical frightened condition on the enemies. If you picture it visually, it's a massive direwolf entirely engulfed in radiant, moonlit white fire, tearing through the front lines of an orc army.
It's so cinematic.
It perfectly blends Vitrovia's primal nature magic with Riddir's infernal vengeance into a localized area of absolute devastation.
And this is where the reality of the game mechanics comes crashing down. In a movie, that Moonfire team-up is the climax. The music swells, the heroes strike their coolest pose, the crowd cheers, and the battle is won.
But this isn't a movie.
No, Dungeons & Dragons is not a movie. It is a tactical simulation governed by probability and an underlying system called the action economy.
The great equalizer.
Exactly. While Moonfire is dominating the front lines, Wiffer is struggling in the background. Remember, he is the one who flew everyone up there. He is already battered.
Yeah, he's at half health.
Right. So he tries to tactically retreat, to disengage from the combat and save himself, but he gets surrounded.
This is where the action economy catches up to him. In tactical combat, the side that takes the most actions usually wins. When you try to move out of an enemy of physical reach in this system, you trigger what is called an opportunity attack.
Basically a free hit.
Yeah, it is a free reactionary swing. The enemy doesn't have to wait for their turn, they just get to punish you for turning your back.
And the dice are entirely devoid of narrative empathy. An orc takes that opportunity attack, and the Dungeon Master rolls a natural 20. A critical hit.
Heartbreaking.
It bypasses Wiffer's defenses entirely. Wiffer drops to the roof, unconscious and bleeding out. And as he lays there, helpless, the rules of the game dictate the enemy's next move. An orc stands over him, laughs, and brutally drives a javelin into his side, forcing massive damage and killing him outright.
I mean...
It is the campaign's very first player death. It isn't a glorious sacrifice jumping in front of a dragon's breath. It is a sudden, muddy, brutal execution on a burning roof.
The abruptness of it is exactly what makes it so devastating.
Yeah.
But the narrative tragedy of this specific death goes so much deeper than just losing a character sheet. Think back to the lore they uncovered in Session 7.
Oh, yeah.
Wiffer had just learned his ultimate purpose in the universe. He was given the prophecy of the fused soul.
Right. The prophecy that revealed his soul wasn't entirely his own.
Exactly. He discovered that his soul was literally divided across planar boundaries. He, the celestial Aasimar, held the radiant half of this fused soul and was destined to save the Sword Coast.
Oh.
His twin sister, Wifla, who he previously believed was just a magical echo, was revealed to actually hold the infernal half residing in the Hells.
So there were two halves of the same coin.
Yeah, and the prophecy explicitly stated that the two champions will rise from one fused soul, and that their disparate magics must entwine to forge the one path to bliss.
So when Wiffer takes that javelin to the ribs, he isn't just a fighter dying in a skirmish. The players are watching a divine, world-saving prophecy shatter right in front of their eyes.
Completely shatter.
The chosen savior of the Sword Coast, the Radiant Champion, just bled out because of a random, nameless orc spear.
Yeah.
The cosmic irony is staggering.
And you can imagine the table is completely reeling from this loss. A player character is dead. The prophecy is seemingly broken.
But the game doesn't pause for grief.
No, it doesn't. The shrine is still actively collapsing beneath their feet, and this is the moment the Dungeon Master pulls off an absolute masterstroke of tension building.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
He steps away from the dice, and he brings a physical Jenga tower to the table to simulate the structural integrity of the burning building.
Let's talk about the psychology of that for a second.
Yeah.
Think about the last time you played Jenga at a party. Your hands get a little sweaty, your breath catches as the tower sways. Now imagine mapping that real-world physical anxiety directly onto your character's survival.
Intense.
Dice rolls represent abstract probability. You toss a piece of plastic, and a fraction of a second later, fate is decided. But pulling a Jenga block, that is 10 to 15 seconds of sustained, undeniable human error.
Oh, absolutely.
If your hand trembles, your character dies.
Sure.
The dread mechanic forces the player to physically embody the precariousness of the narrative.
And the mechanic is laid out clearly for them. At the end of the session, the players must roll a 4-sided die. Whatever number comes up dictates the number of blocks they have to pull from the tower to see if the roof finally collapses under them, dropping them into the inferno.
Just brutal.
Reader the Warlock steps up first. He rolls, and he is forced to make 4 required pulls.
That's a lot.
It is. And the tower is already heavily compromised and wobbly from previous actions, but miraculously the player flawlessly makes all 4 pulls. The structure holds.
And then we get one of the most unexpected, beautiful moments of character growth in the entire campaign.
Yeah, we really do.
Boris the cleric is supposed to pull next. Boris, who has spent the entire combat ignoring his own safety to keep the flames away from the altar of truth. But before Boris can reach for the tower, Reedier steps in.
Amazing.
In an act of incredible sacrifice, Reedier volunteers to make Boris's 4 pulls on his behalf, risking his own real-world dexterity to save his friend.
We have to evaluate why this choice is so significant for Reeder.
Oh, please do.
Look at where this character started. Raider began this campaign as a deeply isolated figure, driven entirely by selfish vengeance, internally divided, and serving a literal devil.
He was a mess.
Just a few sessions ago, his internal spirit, Zarathos, went totally berserk, and he nearly murdered his own party members in a blind rage. He was the definition of a liability.
Anyway, he is the one who started this fire in the first place.
Exactly.
It was his panic eldritch blast that ignited the scrolls.
Precisely. By stepping up and taking those extra pulls, Raider is literally and figuratively taking the heat for his mistake. He is absorbing the risk.
Oh.
And despite the tower swaying, despite the absolute silence at the table, Raider's player effortlessly pulls all 8 blocks. The physical execution perfectly matches the narrative intent.
Which is so rare.
Yeah.
And because of those successful pulls, the Dungeon Master grants them a cinematic payoff. Raider is able to channel Zarathos, the spirit of vengeance, not to destroy, but to absorb. He pulls all the raging ambient fires of the shrine directly into his own body. He pulls the inferno out of the wood, undoing the physical destruction he caused.
So cool.
He saves the shrine of Savras, he secures the concept of truth, and most importantly, he steps up to protect his found family.
It is a phenomenal redemption arc, but one that was bought at the highest possible cost. When we look at Session 8 as a whole, it is a masterclass in the cascading consequences of a single action.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's distill this down for you. A single panicked decision firing a magical blast in a room full of ancient paper forced the party to burn through their most powerful spells just to survive.
Yep.
It forced them to misuse a sacred pocket dimension, which further limited their tactical options. It forced them to divide their attention between fighting off an army and protecting a cosmic Wi-Fi router for a dying god.
And that divided attention.
Right, that inability to cover each other's backs ultimately cost them the life of Wiffer Brightblade. They managed to save the concept of truth, but they lost their radiant champion in the mud.
Which leaves us with a fascinating metaphysical puzzle. Because the characters survived the roof, but they now have to grapple with the fallout of the prophecy of the fused soul.
This is the lingering question I want to leave you with today. We know from Session 7 that Wiffer's soul was not wholly his own.
Right.
It was a single divine soul, violently divided across 2 planes of existence. Wiffer held the physical, radiant half on the mortal plane. His sister, Wifla, operating from the hells, held the infernal half. So what happens when a soul is fundamentally split in 2, and the physical vessel holding one of those halves dies?
It breaks every known rule of mortality in this setting.
Does that radiant energy just dissipate into the ether? Or does it snap across planar boundaries like a rubber band and forcefully fuse with the infernal half, creating a single, highly unstable entity?
I mean, can you even truly kill a soul if half of it is still alive, anchoring it to another dimension?
Exactly. If Wifla is now the sole possessor of that shared spiritual real estate, what does that mean for the prophecy?
The surviving characters are going to have to find the answer to those questions if they have any hope of stopping the cultists of Talos.
And to think, all of this heartache, all of these cosmic questions, started with a single misplaced spark on a rooftop. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Session 8. Keep exploring, keep questioning the stories you consume, and remember, well, actually, sometimes the scariest thing a Dungeon Master can do isn't rolling a 20-sided die behind a screen. Sometimes it's just quietly putting a wooden block on top of a very wobbly tower